I still want to hear it.
Yeah. Next time, maybe we can hook it up to like a speaker and just let it play.
Welcome back again. If you see us shaking our head, we are playing music that you guys cannot hear. And yeah,
Sorry.
we're in the same outfit because we are recording 2 episodes in one day. So welcome to another episode of Beyond the Surface. I am Gilby here with
Isaac?
Isaac, and we are recording, right?
Yeah.
Where
We get
we're doing another study today on Judges 11. It's a long chapter. I think it's 40 verses, but we're going to focus on a portion of it.
Read it when you get a chance.
Yeah, it's
Read
a very interesting story.
You won't regret it.
Yeah, you're just going to focus on a part of it and talk about it. It's beyond the surface, and here we go. All right. So, do you want me to like summarize what the story is about?
Yeah, you can summarize it.
So the story is about, what's the guy's name? Jephthah?
Jephthah.
Oh, Jephthah?
It's like Jephthah. Like the PH is out. I don't know. Just say it. Whatever.
I
like
pronounce it Jephthah. Jephthah. That's weird. So he's an Israelite, specifically from Gilead.
Right.
Isn't Gilead from
yes. The show.
What is the name of the show?
Handmaid's Tale. Yeah.
Yeah. But he's not from that Gilead. Yeah. He's a Gileadite, and his dad had an affair or had a relationship with a prostitute, and he was born.
Right.
But when he grew up, his dad also had another wife that they had sons. So when they grew up, he was sacked from the house. And he was like a fighter. He was a warrior too.
Mm-hmm.
He's a leader, he's a warrior. So the Israelites had conflict with the Ammonites, and the Ammonites were kicking their butt. So they needed someone to lead them. So they approached him and was like, so you all threw me out, but now you need my help. You're coming to get me.
Yeah.
And they're like, he was like, so if I come lead you to fight the Ammonites, do I become your leader? He wanted to be their leader. So they said, yeah, we agree to whatever condition you have for us. So he went, and all this dispute, all this conflict with the Ammonites was about a land that the Ammonites claimed when the Israelites came out of Egypt. They took from the Ammonites, which I don't think they did. Or did they?
I don't think they did either.
I don't think they did, but the king of the Ammonites thought they did. Claimed they did take the land. So they wanted, the whole conflict was about the land. So then he came to lead the Israelites against the Ammonites, and he defeated them. But then on one of the fights, one of the battles that they had, he made a vow to God.
Right.
And that's what I'm going to read, Judges 11 from like 29 to maybe the end, to the end, because it all ties down to
40, yeah. And that's what we want to focus on. That aspect. So
it says, then the Spirit of the Lord came on as Jephthah. He crossed Gilead and Manasseh, passed through Mizpah of Gilead, and from there he advanced against the Ammonites. And he made a vow to the Lord, if you give the Ammonites into my hands, whatever comes out of the door of my house to meet me when I return in triumph from the Ammonites will be the Lord's, and I will sacrifice it as a burnt offering. Then Jephthah went over to fight the Ammonites, and the Lord gave them into his hands. He devastated 20 towns from Aurora to the vicinity of Minnith as far as Abel Keramim. Thus Israel subdued Ammon. When Jephthah returned to his home in Mizpah, who should come out to meet him but his daughter, dancing to the sound of timbrels? She was an only child. Except for her, he had neither son nor daughter. When he saw her, he tore his clothes and cried, "Oh no, my daughter! You have brought me down, and I am devastated. I have made a vow to the Lord that I cannot break." My father, she replied, "You have given your word to the Lord. Do to me just as you promised. now that the Lord has avenged you of your enemies and the Ammonites. But grant me this one request, she said. Give me 2 months to roam the hills and weep with my friends, because I will never marry. You may go, he said, and he let her go for 2 months. She and her friends went into the hills and wept because she would never marry. After 2 months, she returned to her father, and he did to her as he had vowed, and she was a virgin. From this comes the Israelite tradition that each year the young women of Israel go out for 4 days to commemorate the daughter of Jephthah the Gileadite. Amen.
Amen.
So, did somebody send him to make that vow?
Right, and I think the story is straightforward enough that we could just kind of go into lessons.
Yeah.
Right? Because when do you make a vow, and when don't you make a vow?
That is.
And why do you make a vow? Why would you make a vow?
So, I think sometimes we make vows because we're expecting something from God.
Okay.
So it's like for him specifically, I felt like it was a form of manipulation to God. So we say, oh, if you do this for me, then I'll do this for you.
Quid pro quo.
Yeah. Kind of like
Right.
an exchange.
Right. So to me, when I was reading this, I was like, he was already successful in war, right? So I don't want to say he didn't have a reason to not trust that God will make him successful.
Because God, he had won all those battles because of God.
So again, because I know somebody can read it and be like, why would God allow somebody to like sacrifice his daughter, blah, 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 right? Or why would God even accept this thing? But he made the vow even after being successful, right? So that it's not, to me, it wasn't a vow that needed to be made.
No. And also I think we make vows specifically when we want, like there's a specific thing that we really want.
Right.
That we make that vow and we make that exchange. If God do this for me, I'll do this for you. So for me, my thing was, what about this particular battle?
What's that?
That he had to make that vow. Because he had fought them before and he won. But I don't know what specifically about that battle. Because from like verse 1 to like verse 28, they talk about different kinds of battles that they had. But for that one specific, why did he have to make that vow to get the victory?
Yeah, and the weird part is that in verse 29 it says the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, right? As he passed through Gilead, Manasseh, Mizpah of Gilead, right? So if you know, like, to me, I'm still like, if you know that God is with you, if you know that he has shown that he will, so which means that he has something to lose, or maybe he felt like this was the battle. Since he's won all the other battles, if he doesn't win this battle, will he lose his leadership?
Right.
And it was that the thing that was so. Sometimes we make vows not knowing. We are so worried about what we are getting
and not.
We don't worry about what we're actually giving out.
Yeah.
Right. So that's like, if you're going for another job, yes, you evaluate, well, the job I'm leaving, but the job that is being offered that I'm going for, right? That's kind of like, it's a trade-off, but it's not, you're not making a vow, kind of. But like, in this case, it almost seemed as if he didn't think it was going to cost him as much as he thought it was going to cost him, because he was so focused on what he was going to get. Like, if you make me successful, the first thing that comes out of my house, out of the gates of my house.
So that part is what I don't. Where is the vow? Whatever comes out of the door of my house. Right. So which door is he talking about? Because if let's say you're opening the front door of your house, you do not expect an animal to walk through your house. So is it like a particular place where you don't have in Ghana? You have like the main gate before you enter the house, and then there's like the front door before you enter into the house. So I don't know if he was expecting like a goat or something to enter into the door.
That might be what he was expecting. Like I don't think it's from like the house. I think it's like, because I'm assuming because of his success and whatever, he has like not just a house, he has like a compound.
A mansion,
like yeah. So it's like whatever. Because I kept looking at the word that said, was it in 30th percent? Jephthah said a vow. So whatever comes out, right? Wasn't whoever. So I don't think his focus was on a person.
No, he was not.
I'm assuming he had cattle, sheep, goats, all that stuff, but he didn't know. Like, so maybe he could have been, and I have to believe that he was making the vow. Yes, focus on what he wanted, but also in the idea that like I'll sacrifice whatever to you,
Yeah.
not knowing what the sacrifice is. Which to me, it makes me think that because we don't know, we don't make vows with, especially when it comes to God. We don't make vows with God. We can show appreciation, and I don't think that's what he was doing. Because if he had just said, "I will serve you," I will, like, something that I'll dedicate myself to you or whatever. Because once you make a vow, you're essentially tied to it.
You have to keep the vow, especially to God.
Especially to God. And even his daughter said, you've already uttered the words to God, so you got to do what you got to do. So lesson number one, to me, is like, be very intentional of the things that we offer to God, and things that don't offer something that you can't control.
Right.
And I think it's something people, I've heard and seen people talk about let's say you do let's like an appeal for funds usually, right? And sometimes we've heard people say like, if you don't have the money, commit it to God, right? And if it's not something that God is speaking to you, like if you don't have something, David said, I wouldn't give something to God that doesn't cost me. He never said, I wouldn't give somebody's thing to, like, do you know what I mean? Yes, you're expecting that God will give it to you. And as God gives you, you give. You know what I mean? So the more you receive, the more you give. And that's obedient to God. That's following in the direction that God himself has set for you, but not something that, you're not expecting, because this is deep. I mean, it's
so then we can make a vow to God, but
right.
Then you have to make sure the vow that you are making, you intend to keep it. You do not, you do not overplay your hand and offer something that you cannot do, because you cannot overplay your hand and offer something that you cannot afford. So in the case of Samuel, when his mom prayed to God that if he gives him a child, if he gives her a child, he would dedicate the child to and she did exactly that. And don't make a promise, even to regular, to like our day-to-day interactions. You don't make a promise to your brother, not knowing that you're not intending on keeping that promise.
Because even the interesting part is, if the vow had ended at it said in the 31, it said that then whatever comes out from the doors of my house to meet me. So it was a living thing, right? First of all, definitely, to meet me when I return in peace from the Ammonites shall be the Lord's end. He should have just ended it there.
Yeah, he went further to say as a burnt sacrifice.
Right, as a burnt sacrifice. So, I have read, doing my research, I did read in certain places where they said, the Bible never truly says he burnt her up.
Yeah,
right.
I was gonna get there. Yeah,
it never really says that, but it's very difficult to say a burnt sacrifice without fire.
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess we can talk about that aspect later. But what else do you think?
So for me, I'm like, do we, let's take this story aside and to our own lives or regular lives, day-to-day lives. Do we make promises to God? Like sometimes make promises to God that we do not keep.
Yes.
And is that a sin? Is that considered a sin?
I mean, you probably shouldn't lie to God. and if lying is a sin, you probably should not lie to God. And I think that's definitely a sin. I think it's a sin coming from that era, right? Because that era, they really believed in sacrifices. they lived upon sacrifices. If even the people who weren't God fearing or who weren't Israelites dwelt on sacrifices. If it's not raining, let's offer a sheep to the rain god. If it's too
Yeah.
much rain, let's offer a sheep to the rain god. If there's no sun, let's offer
Yeah.
to the sun god. If you are barren, you have to pray to the god of the barren.
Yeah.
Like they were so bent on sacrifices. So I don't think he made this statement lightly.
No,
I just don't think
he thought it would be his daughter.
He just thought it would be like some other creature or something that came in
And
that would mean that much.
And the sacrifices that they made, it was always animal sacrifice.
sacrifice.
It was never human.
Yes.
And God would never let you sacrifice a human being.
Right.
Because even with Isaac and Abraham's the story,
he stopped it.
He stopped that. He stopped that thing.
Right. So at this point, you are putting yourself in a situation that you have to fulfill your end. And I think that's what the problem was. Because I personally don't think God was expecting him to do that. Like before he made the vow, God was not expecting a vow from him because he didn't make any of these vows before the other fights.
Like nobody asked him to make a vow. Like nobody has sent you to make a vow.
You are sitting here somewhere, you want to make a vow.
Like God is there chilling. Like you're going to make a vow.
There's nothing wrong with us like committing to God in specific things. But if you're not willing to follow through and understand that the follow through can cost you more than you can imagine. So you have to be very, very careful in the things that we offer to God. Because especially in those days, it's going to be required of you. So let's shift gears and talk about the daughter.
Yeah. So
unless you want to talk about something. Yeah.
With the daughter, I don't think she was actually sacrificed.
Right. Me neither. I'm just going to say that and say I don't think she was actually sacrificed.
I don't think she was actually sacrificed. Because if you read...
Because of the way things played out.
Yeah. If you read the verse 30... The verse 34 and then 37, where she said, "But grant me this one request. Give me 2 months to roam the hills and weep with my friends, because I will never marry."
Right.
If you are going to be sacrificed, what does marriage have to concern you?
So, and again, I agree, because again, when we look at that generation, right, you were either a woman's status was either your husband or your father.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. So, for you to have a high status, leaving your father's house was your virginity.
Yes.
Right. And so, it almost looks as if maybe that was taken away from her.
Yeah.
And in the sense of giving her as a sacrifice to God, maybe because of that, she was, I don't know, chosen or made to devote a life of devotion to God without having to get married.
Yeah. And that's during my research, that's what I saw, that they had this thing. Oh, I forgot what it was, but it was like the women at that time, some of them that were virgins were taking, kind of like, I'm gonna bring it up again, the handmaid's tale. Like, how they took all like
to serve a purpose. Yeah.
Most of them were not virgins, but they took during that time, they had a thing that they took like women that were virgins to serve in the tabernacle. They called them tabernacle of something, I can't remember. Mm-hmm. But they took them, so they were never gonna get married. They were never gonna be involved in any relationship, but in service to God.
She might be committed to.
So that's where she, basically like nuns.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So that makes sense. So yeah, and that still takes me back, because it's like he didn't, like, I think we said this. He didn't have.
Like, he did not have to make that.
Make any of this. So we have to be very cautious of the things that we commit ourselves to. And sometimes we, where we are from, people like to talk about, witchcrafts and stuff a lot, because people make commitments that follows the family generations to come.
Yeah.
Because if you don't pay for it, someone's going to pay for it. Yeah, I mean, so it's like, where do you put the stop on that? So, to me, again, if you've heard this story before, you can just let us know in the comments. But we hadn't like typically. I think I hadn't come across this story
Yeah, I don't think I've ever
years until like
heard
early
it
late
before.
last year or early this year is when I discovered it. And I was looking at it, and so the reason why we do some of these things is just like, to me, I think as a young man who was growing up in the church, if some of these stories were covered, I might have shown a little bit more interest. You know what I mean? A little bit more interest, because how does a successful person put himself in this position? And that way, I'm even thinking, like, even in our daily lives, it's like, what do we commit ourselves to, and are those necessary things that we commit ourselves to?
So also, was it greediness?
Good question.
Because if you're successful in battle, you win all your
Right.
you win most of your battles. Like why are you basically manipulating God
Trying to manipulate
to
God.
get basically you're getting more money.
Right.
You're trying to get more money, so you say, "Oh, if you do this for me, then I'll do this for you."
But we see it every day in our lives, though, because people make money, and they still want
want
more,
more.
right? So it's not like, we're not saying don't make money, because like,
We all want money.
we all want money, but just like, up to what end? Because again, you have already been successful, and I think he was also trying to, as a child who got exiled, right? And your family comes back, and you're like, the Israelites or whatever come out and like, hey, we need you. And you're like, well, you kicked me out, blah, blah, blah. I want to be your leader. Not, I'm going to stand with my family. Not, I'm going to, like, your first thought was like, make me your leader.
Yeah.
Or like, you know what I mean? So I think he was looking at what he could get out of it. And so I don't know if it was greed or it was just
trying to prove something.
Just trying to prove something. It could be either or. So I guess that's a lesson. Like, maybe sometimes just do things because you are in the position to do it, and not because you get something back from it, right? So yeah, I think that's why I settled on that. You are in a position to do something to help somebody, just do it. I think of the Good Samaritan, right? We call him the Good Samaritan because everybody walked past the guy who was robbed, and then he saw him and he was like, "I'll take him to the inn. I'll provide him with something, give him money, pay for him to be taken care of." He did that because he could,
Yeah,
right, and not because there was anything. I think too many times we also spend time trying to see what we get back from things, or what we get back before we even decide on whether we or not we are going to do something. So, in my eyes, just do things when you are called upon to do something. There's always blessing. Just do it, and especially when you've been blessed already. Like, even if you lost the last war, so what?
Like, that's the part that I don't get, because like the Spirit of the Lord was with him. So like God was with him. So like,
and that actually tells us that the Spirit of God can be with people and people still make certain decisions, right? So it's like you can go somewhere and be like and experience the Spirit of God. And we say that all the time. It doesn't mean that the person leading worship is spiritual. Right. So, so the Spirit of God will also do what he got to do. Like, I believe that regardless of where you find yourself, if there's a message, if there's something that God needs to, if you are genuine in your heart and God needs to reach you, he will reach you in a word or something. You don't have to be under specific people to experience the Spirit of God, right? So that I don't have to go to this prophet because they said, oh, this prophet is out here giving prophecies. Or I don't have to go to this pastor or whatever. So, and again, maybe we'll talk about all those later, but God himself will speak to us and reach us wherever we need to be. So again, that's all we have for today. The story of Jephthah.
Jephthah? However how you want to pronounce it.
Say it.
But don't make promises to God that you cannot fulfill.
You're not ready to fulfill because it's going to cost you.
Yeah.
If there's anything you guys want us to cover, you guys want us to talk about it, let us know in the comments or email us. We still didn't find the email address. We'll put it in the chat so you can reach us. But until next time, you guys, God bless you. And I'm Isaac.
And I'm Gilby.
And until next time, this is Beyond the Surface.
Yeah.
Stay blessed.